The historic Woodstock Art Colony, founded in 1902, is unique among all American and French art colonies. It was intentionally founded as a year-round, full-time art colony by 4 diverse artists. Ralph Whitehead, an English philanthropist who studied at Oxford with John Ruskin, who was the utopian writer, philosopher, and art critic of the day, and an anti-capitalist. Jane Bird McCall from Philadelphia, who studied art history with John Ruskin in Paris and married Ralph Whitehead. Hervey White, the writer from Iowa who attended Harvard and then worked at Jane Addams' Settlement House in Chicago. And Bolton Brown, the artist and accomplished mountaineer from upstate New York who founded the art department at Stanford University. Woodstock began as a year-round arts colony in 1902 and in due course became known throughout America as a community of all the arts. Early hallmarks of the colony were the Maverick Costume, Art, and Music Festival in 1916, the chamber music series known worldwide and is now over 100 years old, and in 1932 the August Full Moon Festival, said to be the Catskills' wildest party. This led to Bob Dylan and the band living and recording in Woodstock along with Janis Joplin and others, and this was before the iconic 1969 Peace and Love Festival.
Woodstock itself has been an artist community since 1902, a very important one and still very much alive today. But it doesn't adhere to any one style. Artists who worked in Woodstock worked in all styles, worked in all media, and certainly contributed to a very vibrant artistic community both in the past and right now.
Of the 180 artists in the collection, none was born in Woodstock, and they were born in 33 states and in 19 foreign countries. So here we have an artist colony, and in close proximity to New York City. When Birdcliff came, there were artists living in Birdcliff, but they were quite separated from the village. What made the big difference was the Art Students League coming to town in the summer of 1906. That shocked the locals. These were young bohemian artists, and they were doing all kinds of things. The Wetero map shows that in 1925, there were over 100 houses in Woodstock occupied by artists. Whereas in 1900, before the founding of Birdcliff, there were no artists living there. When you look at all the artists, you can see that George Bellows, Eugene Spiker, and Charles Rosen lived in a very small, tight community. This was not all roses for the artists. They had different political views at times. They had very different views on arts. There were the traditionalists like Burge Harrison. Sometimes they got very confrontational with the modernists. When it came to art, they did not pull any punches about which art was better or the right one, but they were still friends. They did not destroy friendships over that, although some artists became very reclusive and did their own thing without much involvement in the community.
One of the most prominent artists who came to Woodstock was George Bellows. He came at the invitation of Eugene Spiker, and their artistic friends created their own individual community. The wide range of artists associated with Bellows in Woodstock was important as another magnet for the community.
Eugene Spiker was America's most prominent portrait painter, and he did this one of a local girl in Saugerties. It was deaccessioned by the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I was the fortunate one who bought it at auction. Bellows and Spiker were artist brothers. They were unrelated, but they were artist brothers. Another aspect of community in the Woodstock colony is the extent to which Bellows, in particular, did caricatures of their fellow artists and townspeople. There's a lithograph in the collection done by Pele Delap of 2 couples, the Blanches, Mr. and Mrs., and the Lees, Mr. and Mrs. And eventually, Mrs. Lee left Mr. Lee and became the wife of Mr. Blanche. You can see Arnold Blanche giving a very strong look directly to the eye of Mrs. Lee. Woodstock resident Peggy Bacon was a student of George Bellows at the Art Students League in New York.
This print by Peggy Bacon of a clam bake at Woodstock gives a wonderful sense of community of both the artists, and people are recognizable in this image, and include Peggy Bacon herself as she leans down to feed a cat some of the clams. One of my favorite comparisons is of two images he made of the artist John Carroll. One is a very serious looking lithograph where he is very romantically handsome, and the other is a caricature which is kind of goofy looking and quite endearing. It gives you two sides of not only John Carroll, but two sides of George Bellows.
This work by Julio Di Diego is a painting with 14 panels. It's surrealistic, which is one of the reasons I love it. And the panels, although similar, are also so different.
This Doing Woodard nude is quite unusual for Woodstock artists in terms of the fact that it is a nude, a model, a local person, painted outdoors. Bolton Brown, who was one of the founders of Birdcliff, went on to become one of the most important lithographers in the United States. He's often referred to as the father of American lithography. And he not only made his own lithographs, he printed for other artists, including George Bellows and many, many others.
And this one was printed by Bolton Brown for Rockwell Kent. The plan is to turn this short into a feature documentary. Meanwhile, SUNY Press has published a book available on Amazon entitled The Historic Woodstock Art Colony.